All right, let me go to the managing demand side now, and I'll talk about xeriscaping. I noticed there were some areas on the way in that hadn't been xeriscaped, and let me talk a little bit about our experience with it. In California, outdoor water use accounts for nearly 50% of total domestic use. That's kind of amazing. And it's no surprise then that outdoor uses are the focus of efforts to reduce water consumption. During the Great Drought of 1987-1992, there were many places in California where yard watering was essentially outlawed and people lost their landscaping, just turned brown and died. Obviously, the opportunities for saving water and outdoor uses in this climate are not nearly as large as they are in Southern California, but there are opportunities nevertheless. One factor that is not widely known even in Southern California, but I'm sure it's not widely known here either, is that lawns, grassy areas, use more water than swimming pools, which occupy a comparable area. And if you think about a blade of grass and all those trillions of blades of grass on a lawn, and all that surface transpiring water, you can see why lawns use more water than swimming pools. So significant water savings can be made just by eliminating lawns. More savings can be achieved by substituting plants that are low water users for plants that tend to be water intensive. The use, as you know, of dryland plants in landscaping is called xeriscaping, and it has been widely used in California, where it has led, as I said, to reductions in domestic use as high as 40%. Now, I got some examples for you from the California Association of Landscape Architects of xeriscaping by way of illustrating that xeriscapes can be every bit as pleasing and pleasant to look at and to be in as more water-intensive landscapes. And I have to tell you that the California Association of Landscape Architects needs to learn something about digital photography, because the resolution on these pictures is not good at all. But I hope it'll give you an idea of what xeriscaping can be made to look like. That back in the background there, I do not think is a waterfall. If it is, it seems unclear on the concept. A strategy of reducing landscape water use needs to begin with efforts to identify plants which use little water and ideally require no irrigation at all. Subsequently, an education program is required to acquaint residences with these plants and the techniques of xeriscaping. In communities where xeriscaping has been promoted in California, demonstration yards and gardens have been used with great success. A comprehensive and carefully defined education program is almost a necessary prerequisite for widespread successful adoption of xeriscaping. Finally, there is the crucial issue about whether to make it voluntary or mandatory. And I think that obviously the way you proceed there is to begin with a voluntary program with an eye towards ultimately making it mandatory if people don't do it voluntarily. Xeriscaping programs seem to have worked best in communities where a broad understanding of the water scarcity problem has been cultivated and people see the results of their water conserving activities outdoors reflected in their water bills. And I think that this community has made an excellent start in terms of the education programs, the kind of education programs that would be needed to adopt a comprehensive xeriscaping program, not only for private lands, but also for the public lands. Finally, there are still options for augmenting supplies. And so the supply option that I selected to talk about was reuse. In many parts of the southwestern United States, it is commonly understood that the only way to enlarge water supplies is through reuse. This can work in two ways, the most attractive of which will depend upon cost. Wastewater can be treated to a standard that will allow its use as irrigation water, and then that treated water can be swapped on negotiated terms with an irrigation entity for water that meets potable use standards or can be made to meet potable use standards. Alternatively, wastewater can be treated and used for potable purposes. This has been done for more than half a century. That is, treating wastewater and using it for potable purposes has been done for more than half a century in Namibia, in South Africa, and it has been practiced in Southern California by the Orange County Water District for almost 4 decades. In the case of the Orange County Water District, the concern here, of course, is health effects. There has been continuous monitoring together with special studies to ensure that no adverse health effects occur in humans as a consequence of the use of reclaimed water for potable purposes. In general, the Orange County Water District receives its water supply from the Orange County Sanitation District that provides the essential sanitation services. It subjects that water to advanced wastewater treatment, and then one of two things happens to it. It is either percolated into the ground in percolation basins, which actually make good fishing holes, or it is injected with more treatment directly into the ground through reverse osmosis, which I'll talk about in just a moment. One of the situations that made this an almost inevitable thing in Orange County was the fact that Orange County is just south of Los Angeles County. It's the home of Disneyland. The growth in Orange County, the post-war growth in Orange County, and the use of groundwater started to cause seawater intrusion, which threatened to ruin the whole underground water situation. And so in order to stop the seawater intrusion, this water reuse program was started to build a freshwater barrier against the saltwater intrusion. And then additional water was added so that the reclaimed water is all mixed in there, serving as a reservoir of drinking water as well as a barrier to the seawater intrusion. Now, where the water is directly injected into the aquifer, this is simply a picture of the plant where most of the work is done, and this is a filtration pond, or it's not a pond, it's a filtration facility. Before the water is and water would go from that facility to the percolation ponds pretty well directly. If it's directly injected, it undergoes reverse osmosis treatment, and I'm sorry, again, these slides have terrible resolution. Those tubes on the right are lined with a membrane, and water is forced through that membrane under pressure. The water that comes out of the other end is practically pure. It's the same process that's used for seawater desalting. It's just a lot cheaper here because desalting costs are sensitive to salt content, and the salt content of these waters is not very high. So that's the way those reverse osmosis tubes are arrayed, and here's what they look like with the hollow end of the tube, which isn't hollow at all because it's got membranes in it at the top there. The water then that is injected into the groundwater is cleaner and of higher quality than most of the water that comes out of the tap in much of the United States. The science of potable reuse is pretty clear, and there are instances, including Orange County and places in Florida and now Phoenix, where potable reuse has been, Phoenix, Arizona, has been practiced without incident. Nevertheless, there are some pitfalls, and let me just mention those before I come to my conclusions.